The night the city froze felt like a warning the world had been holding back for years. Ice glazed the sidewalks. Wind cut through coats like knives, and the streets of Chicago emptied, as if everyone had agreed survival was best attempted indoors. That was when a single dad, one of the most powerful CEOs in the country, slowed his car at a red light and saw a woman curled against a bus stop bench, shaking so violently it looked like the cold itself was breaking her. Beside him in the back seat, his young daughter pressed her hands to the glass, her breath fogging the window, her eyes wide with fear and compassion. That moment, small and almost invisible to the rest of the city, would quietly change many lives forever. If you believe in kindness quests second chances, and that compassion can rewrite destinies, take a second now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Ethan Walker had built an empire on precision and discipline. Raised in a Christian household in Ohio, he learned early that work was worship and responsibility was love in action. After losing his wife to illness years earlier, he became both mother and father to his daughter, Grace, balancing boardrooms with bedtime prayers. His success never filled the quiet spaces left behind by grief, and no amount of wealth softened the ache of coming home to a house that felt too large and too silent. Grace became his anchor, the reason he slowed down, the reason he noticed things other people rushed past. That night, Ethan had left the office late, the kind of late that came from meetings stacked on meetings, decisions carrying the weight of thousands of employees. The storm had worsened faster than expected, and he considered driving straight home. But Grace's small voice and her insistence that something was wrong pulled his attention fully to the woman outside. She was thin, wrapped in a coat that had long since lost its ability to insulate, her hair stiff with frost, her hands trembling uncontrollably. The city lights reflected off the ice like a cruel spotlight, and Ethan felt something tight in his chest that had nothing to do with business or logic. Ethan did not see a statistic or a problem to solve. He saw a human being at the edge of endurance. He parked, stepped into cold, and offered help without hesitation, driven by a faith that taught him service mattered most when it was inconvenient. He arranged emergency shelter, paid for medical care, and ensured the woman was safe before the night could claim her. Grace watched everything, holding her father's coat, learning silently that kindness was not something you talked about, but something you did. The woman's name was Hannah Reed. She had not always been homeless. Years earlier, she had been a nursing student in Indiana, caring for an ailing mother while working 2 jobs. When her mother passed and medical bills swallowed what little savings she had, Hannah spiraled. One setback turned into another. A missed rent payment became eviction. Depression became isolation. Pride kept her from asking for help until the streets became her reality. Winter nights were the worst, each one a quiet negotiation between sleep and survival. The help Ethan offered did not fix everything overnight. Hannah spent months in recovery, physically and emotionally. Ethan never visited her in the hospital, never asked for gratitude, never followed up expecting anything in return. He ensured she had access to resources, housing programs, and counseling, then stepped back, believing real help meant allowing dignity to grow on its own. Life moved on, seasons changed, and that frozen night faded into memory for him, one compassionate act among many he never spoke about. Years passed. Grace grew taller, wiser, her kindness deepening into a steady presence that mirrored her father's. Ethan's company expanded globally, his reputation solidifying as a leader who valued people over profit, though few knew where that value truly came from. He continued raising Grace with the same quiet principles, teaching her that success without compassion was failure dressed in expensive clothes. Hannah's journey was slower, harder, and far lonelier. Healing required confronting loss, shame, and years of feeling invisible. But she persisted. She returned to school, driven by the memory of how close she had come to disappearing unnoticed. She studied nursing again, this time with a fierce determination shaped by survival. She volunteered at shelters, understanding the language of the streets better than any textbook could teach. Every step forward felt heavy, but it was movement, and that mattered. Eventually, Hannah found her calling not just in nursing, but in advocacy. She worked with nonprofits focused on emergency cold weather response, medical outreach for the unhoused, and mental health support. Her experience gave her credibility. Her compassion gave her power, and her resilience gave her voice weight in rooms that had once ignored people like her. She became a bridge between two worlds that rarely spoke to each other. The day Hannah and Ethan crossed paths again was not dramatic on the surface. It happened at a corporate philanthropy summit, where executives and nonprofit leaders gathered to discuss partnerships. Ethan attended out of obligation, expecting polished speeches and rehearsed optimism. When Hannah took the stage, he listened politely at first, then with growing attention. Her words carried truth sharpened by experience. She spoke about cold nights, overlooked lives, and how one act of timely kindness could interrupt a tragedy in progress. Ethan recognized her only when she finished speaking, standing tall, confident, unmistakably alive. The recognition struck him quietly, like a memory resurfacing from deep water. He felt no pride, only humility. He realized he had been part of her story, but she had become the author of its future. Hannah never mentioned him directly. She did not frame her success around rescue or charity. She spoke of systems, responsibility, and the sacred worth of human life. The room responded differently than usual. This was not pity. This was respect. Over time, their work intersected naturally. Ethan's company funded programs Hannah helped design, focused on prevention rather than reaction. Grace volunteered at outreach events, forming bonds with people whose lives looked nothing like hers, but felt deeply familiar. Ethan watched his daughter learn empathy not as an abstract concept, but as lived reality. What changed everything was not the rescue itself, but what grew from it. A single decision on a frozen night had rippled outward, shaping careers, values, and futures. Hannah eventually led one of the largest cold-weather emergency networks in the Midwest, credited with saving countless lives each winter. She never forgot where she came from, and she never forgot the child whose concern had first broken through the noise of the city. Years later, during one of the coldest winters on record, Hannah stood beside Ethan and Grace at the opening of a new shelter designed with dignity at its core. No speeches focused on heroism. No cameras chased emotional moments. There was only quiet understanding that compassion, when acted upon, multiplies far beyond its original moment. Ethan still drove through the city some nights, still noticed the corners others avoided. Grace, now older, carried blankets in the trunk without being asked. Hannah continued working long hours, knowing firsthand what failure to act could cost. None of them claimed credit for the lives saved. They